one who accumulates money should realize that he may be harassed by the government, by thieves, or even killed by enemies. Especially in this age of Kali Yuga, it is said that instead of protecting the money of the citizens, the government itself will take away the money with the force of law. The learned Brahmana had therefore decided that he should not accumulate any money. One should own as much as he immediately needs. There is no need to keep a big balance at hand, along with the fear that it may be plundered by the government or by thieves.
要指堆積在蜂巢內的蜂蜜被強行拿走，就應該使積累金錢的人認識到，他也許會受到政府或盜賊不斷的騷擾，甚至還會被對手殺死。經典中說，尤其是在這個加利年代中，政府不但不保護國民的錢財，相反本身會運用法律的力量拿走國民的錢財。正因為如此，博學的布如亞馬納決定不積累任何金錢，人應該擁有自己立刻需要的金錢量，而不需要保有大量的銀行存款，同時害怕它有可能被政府或盜賊奪走。
Stapitam Jinabhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Mukam Karurivachalam Pangam Longayate Girim Yat Vipatamaham Bande Shiguruni Nakaranam Namashreshtamano Apisati Putram Atrasarupam Rupam Tasyagrajim Urupurim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivadamaho Radhika Madhavasam Prakto Yasya Patita Kibyo Shigurun Tandatosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shigurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha Mao Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dishtarine Panchakalpa Durvasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanigo Vaishnavego Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Antayam Adalava Haridasivayo Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparasha Pramodaha Manam Tanoti Sahago Ganiyostayo Yat Paniya Suyavasakandana Kandamulahai Matsamo Nasti Papatma Napadadi Nakaschana Parihare Pilajjame Kimbruve Purushottama Yuvadinam Tata Yuni Yunam Cha Yavatayata Mano Vidabate Tadvam Mano Me Ramatam Tvayi Bhumaos Kalita Padanam Bhumireva Valambanam Tvayi Jata Padadanam Tvam Meva Sharanam Prabho Govinda Vallabhe Radhe Pratyet Tamaham Sada Tudiyam Iti Janatu Govindo Mam Tvaya Saha Radhe Vrindavanadi She Karuna Mitabhagini Kripaya Tavapadamja Tasyam Mayam Pradiyatam. There's a
nice verse in Bhagavad Gita. Jnanina tutta jnana yesham nashitam atmana tesham adityavat vana. Can we hit Gita? Prakashayati tatparam. 5th chapter. Yeah.
喺國家梵歌入邊有一個其中有第5章入邊有個詩節。
This is text 16, chapter 5.
第5章第16節。
Jnanina tu tad ajnana yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavat jnanam prakashayati tat param. When, however, one is enlightened with knowledge by which nations is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. This is chapter 5, text 16.
國家梵歌第5章第16節。但是當人受到驅除無知的知識啟發時，那知識就會像升起的太陽一樣。
Going out?
Not really loud.
Can't hear it back there?
向他揭示萬事萬物的真相。
Hello, hello, hello. Kitchen, come in.
Yeah, 朱個個會 said cannot hear.
Hello.
邊係冇聲嘅。
Do we need to turn it up?
Thank you. Thank you much.
I'll try to speak more closely. Let me read this verse. This is a very important verse, and it's related very nicely to this verse in the Bhagavatam. I just realized it on the moment.
咁呢個一個非常美妙嘅章節咧，佢係解釋咗聖經國家考察入邊，我哋閱讀嗰個詩節嘅內容。
When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nations is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime.
原文呢，但是當人受到驅除無知的知識啟發時，那知識就會像升起的太陽一樣，向他揭示萬事萬物的真相。
Report. Those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered. But those who are in Krishna consciousness are not bewildered at all. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvam Jnana Plavena Jnanagni Sarva Karmani and Nahi Jnanina Sadvisham. Knowledge is always highly esteemed. You're going to wait until you do the whole thing?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Okay.
Better?
Yeah.
And what is that knowledge? Perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna. As is said in the 7th chapter, 19th verse. Bahunam janmanamante jnanamam mam prapadyate. After passing through many, many births, when one perfected knowledge surrenders unto Krishna, or when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him as everything is revealed by the sun in the daytime. The living entity is bewildered in so many ways. For instance, when he unceremoniously thinks himself God, he actually falls into the last snare of nations. If a living entity is God, then how can he become bewildered by nations? Does God become bewildered by nations? If so, the nations or Satan is greater than God. Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. Therefore, one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master and under him learn what Krishna consciousness is. For Krishna consciousness will certainly drive away all nations as the sun drives away darkness. Even though a person may be in full knowledge that he is not this body, but is transcendental to the body, he still may not be able to discriminate between the soul and the super soul. However, he can know everything well if he cares to take shelter of the perfect bona fide Krishna conscious spiritual master. One can know God and one's relationship with God only when one actually meets a representative of God. A representative of God never claims that he is God, although he is paid all the respect ordinarily paid to God because he has knowledge of God. One has to learn the distinction between God and the living entity. Lord Sri Krishna therefore stated in the 2nd chapter, 2:12, that every living being is individual and that the Lord also is individual. They were all individuals in the past, they are individuals at present, and they will continue to be individuals in the future, even after liberation. At night, we see everything as one in the darkness, but in the day, when the sun is up, we see everything in its real identity. Identity with individuality in spiritual life is real knowledge.
要指忘記 Krishna 的人必然會感到迷惑，而有 Krishna 意識的人絲毫不會感到迷惑。國家梵歌第4章第30節詩說：登上超然知識之舟。第4章第37節詩說：知識之火會把物質活動的報應燒成灰燼。第4章38節詩說：超然知識最崇高，無與倫比，知識永遠極受尊崇。這種知識是什麼呢？這種知識就是完全歸依 Krishna 後才能獲得完美的知識。正如國家梵歌第7章第19節詩中聲明說：經過許許多多次生死後，一個真正處在知識層面上的人就會歸依我。當人經過許許多多次出生後歸依 Krishna 時，他就具有了完美的知識。或者說，正如陽光照亮一切，當人有 Krishna 意識後，一切就會向他揭示出來。生物的迷惑是各種各樣的，例如當他無理地認為自己就是神的時候，他實際上已經跌入了無知的陷阱。生物如果是神的話，怎麼可能會被無知所誘惑迷惑呢？難道神也會被無知所迷惑嗎？如果是這樣的話，那麼無知就或說撒旦豈不比神更偉大？人們可以人們可以從有完美的 Krishna 意識的人那裡得到真正的知識。Krishna 意識就像陽光驅散黑暗一樣，必能掃除一切無知。因此，必須向一位真正的靈性導師歸依，在他的指導下學習什麼是 Krishna 意識。一個人即使完全了解自己不是這個軀體，是超越軀體的，但仍有可能分辨得出靈魂和超靈。但是他如果願意託庇於真正的完美而具有 Krishna 意識的靈性導師，就能徹底覺悟到一切。事實上，只有遇上神的代表才能了解神，才能了解自己與神的關係。神的代表因為具有與神的知識而受到尊敬，儘管他們尊敬他就像尊敬神一樣，但他從不自若為神。人必須學會分辨神與生物，因此，主 Krishna 在第2章的第12節詩中說：生物是個體，主也是個體，他們永遠是個體，不論過去、現在、將來，還是解脫後。黑夜，我們看一切都是漆黑一片；白天，當太陽升起時，我們看到一切的真相。知道生物在靈性生活中保持個體性的人，擁有真正的知識。
So this Brahmana that Prahlad Maharaj has met lying on the road has achieved full Krishna consciousness.
咁呢個遇到嘅 Brahmana 咧，佢就已經係擁有咧完全嘅 Krishna 意識。
And as a result of that Krishna consciousness, the world becomes a place of light.
咁因為佢已經擁有呢個完全嘅 Krishna 意識啦，所以呢個世界變得咧係好光亮。
As pointed out in this purport and verse of the Gita, when the sun comes up, then everything becomes revealed. All the details, all the variety.
咁就好似喺國家梵歌呢個要旨入邊，呢一節結詩嘅要旨入邊講到咧，當喺日頭嘅時候，當太陽升起嘅時候咧，我哋就會睇到一切嘅真相。
And before the sun comes up, in the darkness, which is the original and natural state of the material world.
咁但係當太陽未升起黑夜嘅時候咧，其實咧就係一切都係黑暗㗎啦。呢個就係呢個大自然呢個世界嘅本質。
everything seems the same.
所有嘢咧睇上去都好似一樣嘅。
Everything is one in darkness.
咁喺黑暗當中咧，所有嘢咧好似都係得一個嘅啫。
So the philosophies that conclude that the goal is oneness are philosophies in ignorance.
咁所以我哋呢個哲學嘅總結咧，就係話所有嘢咧都係一體性嘅，所有嘢咧都係無知嘅。
The philosophers who adopt this conclusion are like owls.
咁啲哲學家咧，佢咧接受呢一個哲學咧，就好似啲貓頭鷹咁樣。
In the daytime.
佢哋好似貓頭鷹啲日頭嘅時候。
The owls, the owls have these really huge eyes, and their pupils are really big, and they can't tolerate daylight.
咁呢啲貓頭鷹佢哋嘅眼好大啦，佢哋嘅瞳孔好大啦，咁所以日頭嘅時候亦太光對佢哋嚟講，我哋忍受唔到呢啲強光。
So they keep their eyes shut in the daytime.
咁所以我哋日頭嘅時候咧，一定要咧眯埋隻眼。
And they can't know about the sun.
所以佢哋咧根本睇唔到太陽。
But when one's eyes are open with spiritual knowledge, one's knowledge, one's intelligence becomes enlightened, and we can see, even in the daytime, everything as it is.
咁但係當我哋嘅眼睛咧係受到呢個靈性知識所啟示嘅時候咧，咁我哋嘅眼睛咧就可以白天咧就會睇到咧一切事情嘅真相。
And a very important aspect of that vision is being described here in these verses in relationship to the liberated Brahman.
咁喺呢一度咧，即係當我哋得到呢個啟示嘅時候，我哋睇到嘅嘢咧係最重要嘅事情咧，已經喺呢一度咧，通過呢一個婆羅門咧係揭示出嚟。
The result of studying under a bona fide spiritual master and applying the knowledge into one's life is that one becomes enlightened.
咁我哋通過咧係一個具資格嘅靈性導師啦，去學習呢啲靈性嘅知識啦，咁一個人咧就會得到啟發。
And then, when one's eyes are open, the whole world becomes guru.
咁當我哋眼睛係得到呢個揭示嘅時候咧，所有嘅事情咧都會變成我哋嘅導師。
In other words, a person who's fully Krishna conscious will look at the world and learn all the lessons that they need to learn to live in perfect harmony with Krishna and Krishna's laws, just by that knowledge.
咁如果一個人通過一個具資格靈性導師得到呢個啟發嘅時候咧，佢就可以通過呢個世界上一切嘅事情咧，係學習咧點樣可以同呢個大自然咧係完美咁樣咧和諧咁樣生活。
The materialist is simply interested in enjoying the varieties of material nature.
咁呢物質主義者咧，只係咧係顧住咧係呢個自我嘅享樂。
So they see things and they may be interested and they may be even stimulated by them, but only for sensual pleasure.
咁佢哋可能
or
見到
mental pleasure.
佢哋見到好多事情，可能都會有啲啟發嘅，但係純粹咧係想得到呢個感官嘅享樂。
The sensual pleasure means they'll try to accumulate all of it in order to enjoy to the maximum.
咁我哋咧會累積呢啲事情啦，然之後咧就盡情咁去享受。
At the expense of everyone else.
咁咧係但係咧就係通過呢樣嘢咧，就其實咧係損害其他人。
Just the opposite of the birds and the bees.
咁咧就係呢個雀仔同埋蜜蜂嘅相反。
Here it's described as bees. They go from flower to flower and they collect all day. They collect nectar.
咁呢蜜蜂咧由一朵花去另外一朵花咧，成日咧佢都會收集呢個蜂蜜。
But when they get back to the beehive and they make all this honey, what happens?
咁但係當我哋返咗啲蜂巢啦，做咗呢個蜂蜜啦，咁會發生咩事咧？
Sometimes the bee tender just takes the honey.
咁個養蜜蜂嗰個人咧就拎走晒所有蜂蜜。
And they're left with nothing. And then they have to go again, collect everything.
咁佢哋乜都冇晒啦，於是佢哋又要出去採蜜。
Or if the beehive is in nature, where there's no, bee tender. Sometimes we have that in Govardhan, there'll be these big beehives in the trees. And when the bees come, like in big numbers, and disturb the people, then we take the beehive out.
咁有時喺大自然嗰度就有啲係即係唔係人養嘅蜜蜂啦。咁譬如好似喺嗰間山咁咧，其實都有啲好大嘅蜂巢嘅。但係當佢太多蜜蜂嘅時候，我哋都會咧拎走個蜂竇。
Of course, we try not to hurt the bees.
咁我哋當然啦係盡量係唔會傷害啲蜜蜂。
But still, they have to find another place to do their honey business.
咁但係咧都要即係當佢半價，因為等我哋繼續採蜜蜂蜜。
So, and the birds, when you leave a bag of grains or something for the birds, they'll come and they'll take, and when they're full, then they'll go and they leave whatever is there.
咁就好似雀仔咁，譬如你等啲谷米喺個地下度，佢就會嚟啦，就會食啦。當佢食飽就會飛走，就剩翻好多喺個地上邊。
And as a result, the birds are more or less free. They can fly from here to there. They've got a great system of defense. Whenever something's coming their way, they just jump and fly away.
咁所以佢哋其實係比較自由嘅，因為佢哋識飛啦。咁如果佢遇到任何危險嘅時候，佢好簡單就係飛走就得啦。
And the reason they can do that is because they don't accumulate too much.
咁點解佢哋可以飛咧？就因為咧佢哋唔會積累太多。
Or the opposite, the python. The python just lays there and waits for something to come into its mouth, basically.
咁我相反咧就係呢個蟒蛇啦，佢基本上喐都唔喐嘅，就瞓喺度，就等有啲咩植物走過，佢哋就食乜嘢。
So in either case, there's a relative freedom from anxiety, from attachment.
咁喺呢兩個例子咧，其實相對性咧，佢哋咧都係咧係擺住咗呢個依附。
The immature devotee will take this example and try to apply it immaturely without realization, proper realization.
一個唔成熟嘅奉獻者咧，可能佢就會引用呢個例子咧，就唔成熟咁樣咧係應用呢個例子。
And therefore will reject money.
咁所以
The
咧
accumulation of money.
佢就會咧好抗拒金錢，因為佢咧就知道唔應該咧係累積呢個金錢。
But the devotees of the Lord, they don't reject money. As a matter of fact, they try to get as much of it as possible.
咁但係呢個主嘅奉獻者咧，佢唔會咧抗拒呢個金錢嘅，反而咧會咧就想得到越多金錢越好。
But they're not burdened by the attachment because they know that it belongs to Krishna.
但佢哋咧係唔會咧係得到呢個麻煩，因為佢知道啲錢咧係屬於 Krishna。
A pure devotee is one that knows that everything belongs to Krishna.
呢個純粹奉獻者咧就係知道咧所有嘢咧、所有事情咧、所有物件咧都係屬於 Krishna。
Including one's own body and mind.
包括咧佢自己嘅身體同埋嘅心。
Therefore, the pure devotee of the Lord takes special care of everything that they come in contact with.
咁所以咧，呢個純粹奉獻者佢接觸到任何嘅事物咧，佢都會咧好小心咁處理。
And they accept whatever comes without unnecessary or over endeavor.
咁所以佢哋咧唔會過分熱衷咧去努力咧去嘗試得到啲嘢。
And they use it in the service of the Lord.
咁佢哋咧將會所有得到嘅物件咧都係用喺咧主嘅服務當中。
We have met in our lives very rich men.
咁喺我哋嘅即係生活入邊，我哋會遇到啲好有錢嘅人。
I knew one such person when I was in London, and he was telling me, I won't mention names because I don't want to implicate.
咁當我喺倫敦嘅時候，我都遇到一個咁嘅人，但我就唔講佢嘅名。
I said, how would you make it look so easy? You accumulated so much wealth. He was a billionaire. And he said, how do you do that?
咁跟住我就問佢點解你可以用咩方法可以揾到咁多錢？
He said, my whole life, when I walk into a room, I just look like this, and I see every single thing in the room where it should be, rather than where it is.
咁佢個人個好有錢人就話，當我行入一間房嘅時候咧，就會係咁望啦，周圍望啦，睇下呢啲嘢係乜嘢。
So some people have that karma. They just know how to organize things in order for money to come to them.
咁有啲人咧就有呢個業報啦，佢就佢哋一當佢睇呢啲嘢嘅時候，就知道咧應該咧點樣咧先可以咧係幫佢賺錢。
Whereas some people will struggle and struggle and struggle, and they still can't organize things in order to get wealth.
但係有啲人咧就無論佢點樣去掙扎去努力咧，佢哋都唔識得點樣去組織咧去賺錢。
So Yadrich Jalavasantushto, we quoted this verse the other day also, because this whole section is pretty much in the same vein of this topic. Yadrich Jalavasantushto dvanvatito vimaktara samaksidhau asidhau cha kritpa pi nadivantite. It means that the devotee or spiritually realized person is satisfied with gains which come of their own accord.
咁呢個咧係已經喺靈性上自我覺悟嘅人咧，會滿足咧係一啲佢自然得到嘅一啲嘅事情。
An advanced devotee, a pure devotee, advanced devotee, may be very wealthy.
咁一個咧好進步啦、好純粹嘅奉獻者咧，佢可能係非常之有錢嘅，
Or he may have nothing,
或者佢一無所有，
but he's happy
但係咧佢係非常之快樂。
because he uses whatever he has in the service of the Lord.
咁 咁因為咧，無論佢擁有啲乜嘢咧，佢都將呢啲嘢咧係用喺呢個主嘅服務當中。
Among Lord Chaitanya's associates, they were very, very qualified, materially together, wealthy and influential devotees.
咁喺主嘅坦爺嘅同遊當中咧，有啲咧係非常之有錢啦，非常之有權力嘅人。
And there were those that were incredibly simple and destitute practically, materially.
咁亦都有一啲咧係非常之簡單啦，同埋喺物質上咧係一無所有嘅人。
But because their hearts were dedicated to the Lord, because they had undeviating, pure devotion for the Lord, because they felt that everything that they had belonged to the Lord was pleased with all of them the same.
咁但係因為內心咧對主有呢個堅定不移嘅信念啦，同埋咧佢哋知道咧所有嘢咧其實都係屬於主嘅，所以咧主亦都係非常之開心。
And the Lord would have these very wonderful, almost humorous exchanges with these devotees. Intimate exchanges with these.
而主係會同佢有啲好幽默啦，同埋咧好親密嘅呢個嘅接觸。
Kbdg Hk was so poor. All he did was he made by hand leaf cups and then sold them in the market.
咁其中一個奉者佢係非常之窮啦，佢只係可以用樹葉咧係整一啲杯。
Leaf cups, they're not very, you have to have a big factory to make a lot of money making leaf cups.
咁佢整咗呢啲用葉整嘅杯之後拎去市場度賣啦，咁但係其實呢啲杯咧根本唔值錢啦，除非你喺個工廠入邊生產。
And he lived very, very simply in a little cottage and a little plot of land around the cottage, and he would grow the things that he would sell. He had banana trees, and he had vegetables, and he had radishes and bananas and different things, different vegetables.
咁佢嘅生活非常之
Squash.
非常之簡單啦，咁佢有間好簡單嘅茅屋啦，有笪田啦，咁佢就喺度種佢需要，有香蕉樹啦，咁佢就喺度種菜啊，種呢啲蔬菜出嚟咧，就係咁嘅生活。
And the Lord would come there and tease him. He would say, Sridhar, where have you accumulated your wealth? I know you keep wealth hidden secretly.
跟住主咧，單日就會去到咧係即係同佢開玩笑啦，咁佢同佢講啊，舒啦，你究竟將啲錢收埋邊？我知你好有錢嘅。
I'm going to expose you.
咁我咧就要即係要拆穿你。
And Sridhar would he was such a simple-hearted, honest Brahmana. He would say, Lord, I have nothing, but whatever I have is yours. You take, and he would demand, now cook me this, cook me that, give me this, give me that. And if he did all that, he wouldn't have anything left over for himself or for his family, for anything.
咁但係佢係非常之簡單、好純粹嘅人啦。咁佢會同主講啦，啊，其實我想有所有嘢都係你嘅，你要咩就拎走啦，無論你要求咩我都會俾你。
So he would joke, he would have this joking
咁主係會
relationship with him.
同呢個鳳姐係會用即係開玩笑咁樣。
But the Brahma was so liberal that he would just give the Lord everything he wanted, and he would say, it doesn't make any difference, you're taking care of everyone anyway, so I'm just going to give everything to you, and everything would be fine. And it did. He would live, he would have whatever he needed to keep his body and soul together.
咁呢個婆婆啦，雖然咁窮啦，但係佢都係冇所謂嘅。總之主要要求啲乜嘢佢都會俾佢，甚至所有嘢佢俾晒佢咧都可以。咁但係佢仍然有足夠咧可以維持佢嘅生活。
But he gained the most important thing.
但係其實係得到一樣最重要嘅嘢。
Devotional ecstasy and love in a loving exchange with the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
就係從呢個至尊主嘅一個愛嘅交流啦，而係得到呢個奉愛嘅狂喜。
On the other hand, Kbdg was very, very opulent, aristocratic wealth he had, old wealth.
咁而另外一個奉者 Kbdg 咧，佢就係啱啱相反，佢係非常非常之富有。
When he traveled, he would travel with these huge, complete containers. Containers, I don't know if it's the right word, but these huge carriers that would carry everything he needed to set up an opulent room wherever he was. Couches and carpets and fancy furniture, bedsteads. Wherever he went, he would carry all these things with him.
咁佢係富有到咧，就無論佢去邊度旅行啦，佢都會帶住一個好大好大嘅車啦，咁入邊咧有晒所有要用嘅嘢啦，佢嘅家私啊、床啊、地氈啊，一切即係非常之 富裕嘅呢啲嘅物件。
But Pundarik Vijayanidhi was actually an eternal associate of Krishna,
但係其實佢本來咧就係呢個主嘅永恆嘅同友，
an eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya.
咁佢哋就係亦都係成為咧主宰坦爺嘅同友。
He was in Krishna Lila Vrishabhanu, the father of Srimati Radharani.
咁其實 Vishnu Balu 就係咧係Srimati Radharani 嘅父親，就喺 Krishna 嘅逍遙時光入邊。
So Lord Chaitanya is Radha and Krishna together. Krishna in the mood of Radharani. So you can imagine how dear Pundarik Vijayanidhi was to Lord Chaitanya.
咁其實主宰坦爺咧就係Krishna 同埋 Srimati Radharani 嘅合體啦。咁所以你有想去到呢個其實呢個奉獻者對主宰坦爺係幾咁親愛。
So he was very dear to Lord Chaitanya, and so much so that when he heard that Pundarik Vijayanidhi was traveling and he was coming to Navadvip, he would sometimes send his intimate associates there to be with him.
咁主宰坦爺同佢非常之親密嘅啦。咁所以當主宰坦爺知道佢要嚟啦屈嘅時候咧，佢甚至咧派遣佢嘅好親密嘅同友咧係去揾佢。
Now, Gadadhar Pandit was just the opposite. He was a little bit like Sridhar in that he was very, very poor and lived a very simple, enriched life. Great scholar, great renounced devotee.
咁簡單觀念就係、同書都有啲相似啦，佢都係好窮啦，亦都係過啲好氣絕嘅生活。
And Mukunda, he was friends with Mukunda. And Lord Chaitanya told Mukunda and Pundarik that they should go to meet Pundarik Vijayanidhi.
咁 Mukunda 亦都係佢嘅朋友啦。咁主宰坦爺就同 Mukunda 講咧，你咧係要去
to meet to
Mukunda and Gadadhar.
Mukunda and Gadadhar, they should go to meet Pundarik Vijayanidhi because he was traveling to
咁佢就叫 Mukunda 同埋Gadadhar 咧就去揾佢。
And when they arrived at the place where Pundarik Vijayanidhi had set up his establishment, they came in and they saw a person that was completely decked with jewels and silk, and his hair was like, had this very expensive oils, you know, and he smelled fragrant, it was like coming into a king's palace.
咁當佢哋去到揾到呢個咁富有嘅見到呢個咁富有嘅奉獻者嘅時候，佢就非常之好愕然啦，因為咧佢係全身咧都戴滿珠寶啦，佢哋身上亦都有即係各種嘅香氣。
But Lord Chaitanya had told them to go and hear from him about Krishna.
咁但係主宰坦爺咧係叫佢哋咧去到揾佢咧係聆聽咧關於 Krishna 嘅消息。
When Gadadhar Pandit saw this, he got doubt.
咁當格達德潘尼見到佢嘅時候咧，佢就有啲懷疑。
There must be some mistake here.
梗係有啲事情係錯咗。
This person is a sense enjoyer.
呢個咧係一個完全係即係有感官享樂嘅人。
So he kind of kept quiet. He was a very quiet, humble, submissive person.
咁於是佢就保持安靜啦，好謙卑咁樣。
And Mukunda was a doctor, and he was a little more worldly, so he was exchanging with Pundarik Vijayanidhi, and then they left.
咁跟住，但係 Mukunda 佢本身係一個醫生啦，佢就同佢咧不斷喺度講嘢，跟住佢就離開咗。
So when they came back to Lord Chaitanya, so he asked Gadadhar Pandit, so did you hear from Pundarik Vijayanidhi?
咁跟住咧，就當主宰坦爺當佢哋翻到去見到主宰坦爺嘅時候，主宰坦爺就問佢哋：你聽過啲乜嘢啊？
And Gadadhar Pandit is the effulgence of Radharani. He's an incarnation of the effulgence of Srimati Radharani. So he didn't want to say anything in front of Lord Chaitanya. So he said, well, not exactly.
咁當記得見到主宰坦爺嘅時候，佢咩都冇講啦。
Of course, Lord Chaitanya knew everything.
因為其實主宰坦爺咩都知道。
So he told him, no, you go back and you hear from Pundarik Vijayanidhi.
咁跟住佢哋就叫佢再翻去，你要再聽佢講嘢。
So he went back, and this time, in order to follow the instructions of the Lord, he began to recite some verses from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam about Krishna's pastimes.
咁當今次我哋翻去嘅時候咧，咁因為佢哋要服從主嘅訓示啦，於是咧佢就開始咧朗讀咧係呢一個咧聖典博家亞壇咧第10篇Krishna 嘅逍遙時光。
And as soon as Pundarik Vijayanidhi heard the sound of Krishna's pastimes, he went into ecstatic symptoms.
咁當佢聽到咧，當佢一開始聽到咧，即係 Krishna 嘅逍遙時光嘅聲音嘅時候咧，佢咧就變得狂喜，
His tears started flowing from his eyes.
咁佢開始流淚，
He started to shake.
佢開始咧喺度
He
戰
was
鬥，
roaring.
佢喺度咧大聲嗌，
And he started moving about and breaking everything in his, fancy room.
咁佢咧喺度喐嚟喐去啦，就將所有間咁華麗嘅房入邊所有嘢咧都打爛
It
晒。
was like he became mad and he started throwing things and breaking things. And pretty soon his lovely, opulent, royal, room was completely destroyed.
咁佢哋好似變得瘋狂啦，咁佢間好華麗嘅房入邊所有嘢咧都俾佢打爛晒。
Gadara Pandit was in the corner, completely, we say in England, gobsmacked.
咁其他人就係喺個房嘅嗰頭嗰度咧，就完全咧係不知所措。
Lovely word, gobsmacked. It means completely confused or overwhelmed or
係完全係
bewildered.
不知所措，唔知應該點樣。
But then he realized, he said, oh, this person is actually advanced.
後尾嗰陣時，佢哋先至發現咧，其實呢個人咧原來佢真正係點樣。
He fell at the feet. He fell at the feet of Kbdg Hk. He said, you are someone special.
佢哋咧向將 Kbdg 係頂拜啦，佢就同佢講：你真係完全係一個好特別嘅奉獻
I
者。
have made a great offense.
佢哋咧係做咗一個好大嘅冒
I
犯。
thought that you were an ordinary sense enjoyer.
佢哋咧以為咧佢係一個好普通嘅感官享樂者。
The only way that I can be relieved from this offense is if you accept me as your disciple.
咁咧唯一嘅方法咧可以咧令到即係你寬恕我咧，就係希望你接納我哋成為你嘅門徒。
And in that way, Gadara Pandit was initiated.
咁係呢個方法
Kbdg Hk.
咁係亦都係因此咧係嘅德行係得到呢個啟迪。
The so-called sense enjoyer.
咁係通過個表面上好似係一個感官享樂者。
So it makes no difference whether one is super opulent or one is in.
咁所以無論一個人係好貧窮啦，或者係非常之富有咧，其實係冇分別嘅。
If one is a pure devotee of the Lord.
如果一個人咧係一個主嘅純粹嘅奉獻者，
But until one becomes the pure devotee of the Lord, one should be extremely careful when it comes to associating with wealth.
咁但係當你未成為一個純粹奉獻者之前咧，你咧對於金錢處理金錢咧，必須要非常之小心。
We can't imitate Kbdg Hk.
我哋咧唔可以咧係模仿咧 Kbdg Hk.
Rather, we should stay in a humble position and hear the Lord's pastimes as much as possible.
我哋咧要係用一個好謙卑嘅態度咧，係聆聽主嘅逍遙時光。
Chant His glories
咁我哋要念誦主嘅聖名，
and try to get everything in the world and bring it back to Krishna.
咁咧係希望得到咧呢個世界上一切嘅嘢啦，然之後咧係俾用係拎翻嚟咧係俾獻俾主。
Material opulence is represented by Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. She is the source of all opulence in the world.
咁物質嘅富有咧係由呢個 Lakshmi 啦，佢係呢個幸運女神咧去所代表嘅。
The materialistic sense enjoyers, they try to enjoy Lakshmi without Narayan, without Krishna.
咁呢個物質主義享樂者咧，佢哋好想去享受 Lakshmi 咧，但係咧係Narayana 係唔係即係冇 Narayana 喺度嘅。
So the Brahmana that Prahlad Maharaj met, that we are reading about in these verses of this section of the Bhagavatam, was playing it safe. Playing it safe. That's an expression that means he didn't want to take any chances that he was going to become entangled in the material world again, so he just renounced everything.
咁喺度呢個婆羅門咧，佢係即係非常之好小心啦，要用嗰個好安全嘅方法啦。咁所以就係棄絕晒一切嘅物質嘅財富。
But again, he could do that because he was fully Krishna conscious. He was fully self-realized.
咁佢可以咁樣做咧，因為佢咧係一個已經係咧完全嘅係自我覺悟。
And everything in the world became a source of illumination for him. A source of illumination.
咁因為呢個世界上一切嘢咧，都係成為咧其實係一啲幻象。
And he's teaching us what that means.
咁
When one's eyes are actually illumined with knowledge, one can see the world as one's guru.
咁但係當我哋嘅眼睛咧係受到呢個靈性知識個啟發嘅時候咧，我哋所睇到嘅嘢咧，其實所有一切呢個世界上嘅事情咧，都會成為我哋嘅老師。
This is a very important point because it allows one not to be overly dependent on the mercy of the personal presence of the spiritual master.
咁佢令到我哋咧唔會咧過分咧係依賴咧我哋咧個人嘅靈性老師。
The spiritual master's instructions are meant to be followed.
咁我哋應該咧係跟從咧靈性導師嘅訓示。
Krishna's instructions are meant to be followed.
我哋咧亦都係跟從咧係 Krishna 嘅訓示。
We're not accumulating knowledge for knowledge's sake.
我哋咧唔係因為要得到知識咧而累積呢個知
We're
識。
accumulating knowledge so that our eyes will be open.
咁我哋希望得到知識咧，係因為希望咧可以咧令到我哋嘅眼睛咧可以打
So
開。
that we can see things as an individual soul properly in the proper perspective and know what to do, what not to do, know how to be detached.
咁令到我哋咧能夠咧用一個正確嘅態度咧去睇呢個萬事萬物，亦都知我哋應該做啲乜嘢，唔應該做啲乜嘢。
Whether our prarabdha karma is to have a lot or whether our prarabdha karma is to have nothing.
咁無論我哋嘅業報係令到我哋咧係擁有好多，或者係一無所有。
Most of us are somewhere in between.
咁我哋咧都可能喺中間啦。
So this is Krishna consciousness. This is illumination that we use everything in the service of the Lord.
咁呢個就係 Krishna 意識啦。我哋咧用我哋所有嘅一切嘅事嚟到咧係服務主。
We may live very opulently. We may live very simply.
我哋咧可以咧係好富有咁樣生活啦，亦都可以好簡單咁生活。
But the perfection, this is about perfect person, behavior perfection, is that we see everything as belonging to the Lord.
咁但係一個完美嘅人咧，佢嘅行為咧就係咧，佢睇所有事物咧都係屬於主嘅。
And therefore we use everything in the service of the Lord.
咁所以我哋會用一切嘅事物咧嚟到係為主服務。
And we take special care of it, no matter what it is.
咁無論呢件物件係乜嘢咧，我都會好小心好咁樣去運用。
As if it belongs to the Lord, because it does.
因為咧，其實你每一件嘅物件咧都係屬於主。
So the devotee, the pure devotee, no matter whether they're poor or whether they're rich, they're automatically clean.
咁所以一個純粹奉獻者，無論佢哋富有定係貧窮咧，佢哋咧自動咧就會係非常之清潔嘅。
They're automatically simple.
佢哋都係咧好自然咧就會變得好簡單。
They're automatically renounced.
佢哋都自然地係就會好棄絕。
Whatever material circumstances they find themselves in, due to providence, due to time.
咁無論係處於一個物質嘅任何一個環境當中，其實都係咁樣。
So reversals of life are seen in the same light. Reversals in life are seen in the same light.
咁無論你生活係逆境或者順境，其實都係一樣。
They are sent to us in order to learn the lessons we must learn in this material world to become detached at the time of death.
咁係咧係通過呢啲嘅逆境順境，令到我哋明白到咧，我哋咧要棄絕啦，同埋咧我哋咧當我哋離開身體嘅時候咧係要唔可以依附。
And in the meantime, we live according to our means, according to what our time and destiny have provided us, simply and naturally and happily in Krishna consciousness.
咁我哋而家咧就喺呢一刻咧，係我哋身處嘅環境當中咧，我哋咧就可以咧係有 Krishna 意識地咧好開心咁樣係生活落去。
And according to our capacity, we give everything we have to Krishna.
咁根據我哋嘅能力咧，我哋將所有咧都係獻俾 Krishna。
And then we are free.
咁我哋咧就會得到自由，
Just like the python Brahman.
就好似呢個蟒蛇咁
We
樣。
don't have to go and lie on the street in Hong Kong. Not practical.
我哋唔需要咧係喺香港咧係瞓喺個街度，因為呢個唔實際。
But we must be detached.
但我哋咧必須咧係唔依附。
And we get that detachment by giving to Krishna.
咁我哋點樣可以變得唔依附咧？就係將我哋擁有嘅嘢咧係獻俾 Krishna。
By hearing and chanting about Krishna.
咁咧係通過咧聆聽咧同埋念誦，
As much as possible.
係越多越好。
Reduce as much as possible the material necessities so that we can hear and chant as much as possible.
咁咧通過呢啲，我哋就可以咧係聆聽 聆聽同埋念誦咧係越多越好嘅。
The glories of Krishna.
咁係呢個主嘅榮耀，
The glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu
係主宰產業嘅榮耀，
and his pastimes.
同埋佢嘅逍遙時光。
Because they are magic, miraculous.
因為咧係非常充滿咗呢個神奇嘅力
They
量，
will give us everything.
佢咧會帶俾我哋一切，我哋
As
一
we were
切。
speaking last night in the Sunday feast lecture, we read a little section from Navabraja Mahima describing Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and their living situation in Nandagram.
咁我琴日咧就喺 Navabraja Mahima 本書入邊咧讀咗少少係關於咧係喺 Nandagram Nanda Maharaj 同埋 Mother Yashoda 嘅一啲逍遙時光。
So if we renounce everything and give everything to Krishna, then we get everything in return.
咁我哋棄住所有嘢啦，將所有嘢都獻俾主嘅時候咧，其實咧最終我哋咧嘅係會得到一切嘢嘅回報。
Braj is the most opulent place.
咁呢個面加墳係最富裕嘅地方。
The cow barns are more opulent than the palatial buildings in heaven or in Dwarka. The cow barns are the places where they keep the cows.
咁呢個牛棚咧，其實咧就係呢個世界上最華麗嘅地方。
The forests, did she get it right?
I don't think so. The cow, the place where
Yeah,
they keep the
cows
cows,
yeah.
is more opulent than the water and the heavenly planet.
咁呢個牛棚咧，佢哋即係啲牛喺度住嘅地方咧，係比喺呢一個Dwarka 呢個皇宮咧，係更加係華麗。
More specifically, there are buildings in the heavenly planets and in Dwarka that are so opulent, they're unimaginable.
咁喺 Dwarka 咧，呢個係天堂嘅星球入邊咧，係有一啲建築物咧係華麗到我哋都想像唔到。
But in Braj, the cow barns are more opulent than those buildings.
咁但係咧喺呢個面加墳嘅呢個牛棚入邊咧，其實咧係比呢啲我哋想像唔到咁華麗嘅建築物咧更加華麗。
The forests are more opulent even than the cow barns.
咁而呢個森林咧係比呢啲牛棚咧係更加華麗。
So we should want to go there.
咁我哋咧係應該好渴望咧去呢啲地方。
And we will be satisfied on all levels.
咁我哋咧喺無論任何嘅層面咧都會得到滿足。
This is how we see the world.
咁呢個咧係我哋點樣去睇呢個世界嘅方法。
Hare Krishna. So, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, the renounced Brahmana ki, Lord Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, or Premanandi, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Any questions, comments, corrections? Yes.
We mentioned that in Shwaka these sages is like Python, so you just accept whatever is come. In the other way, you also mentioned that in order a Krishna consciousness, pure devotee, they use everything in the service of Krishna. So at the same time, we understand that these Python-like sages, he just accept whatever he get. At the same time, apparently like he's not doing anything. How can we understand that? Because also Krishna told Arjuna he should not stop working, he should not stop his duty. But these sages just lying down and just accept whatever.
我個問題就係話呢個聖言啦，就好似蟒蛇咁樣樣。咁我哋明白呢個好似蟒蛇嘅聖言，佢接受任何嚟嘅嘢，咁但係就表面上看起嚟佢好似乜嘢都冇做。咁 Krishna 喺寶嘉梵歌叫阿 Arjuna 你就唔可以停止活動嘅。咁同埋都有講過，你應該用任何嘢去落去 Krishna 嘅服務入邊。咁我哋點樣去理解咧？
We can't imitate the enlightened Brahmana.
咁我哋唔可以模仿呢一位覺悟咗嘅Brahmana.
he belongs to the smallest number in terms of categories of persons.
咁佢係屬於我哋分類嘅裏面一個即係少數嘅一部分。
So he is living out his destiny.
咁佢係按住佢嘅命運去生活。
Whereas another person may be living out the destiny in another way.
咁另外一啲人有佢另外一個嘅命運。
If a person that doesn't have that spiritual qualification or that destiny to act like that, tries to act like that, they can't do it.
咁但係如果一個人佢嘅命運或者命中注定佢冇呢一個資格去做呢樣嘢嘅時候，佢係做唔到嘅。
So we're asked by Krishna to act according to our own qualification.
咁所以我哋係按住自己嘅嗰個資格去生活。
But apply the same principle.
咁但係個原則係一樣嘅。
Devotees apply the same principle. We take what comes and we use it in Krishna service. It's the same principle.
咁所以奉獻者都遵守住同樣嘅原則，就係我哋接受我哋所得到嘅嘢，然之後去用嚟服務 Krishna。
Otherwise, you can go and you can lay in the street. But you can't. You can't and you won't.
但係如果我哋淨係瞓喺條街度，但係我哋做唔到，我哋都唔會咁做。
That is the benefit of imitation.
咁呢個就係你去模仿嘅結果。
It is useless. It has no benefit.
一無是處嘅，冇益嘅。
Better you act from the position you're in.
咁你要按住自己嘅一個位置去到活動。
And apply the principles that we discussed during the class.
咁然之後去實踐我哋頭先喺課堂上面講嘅一啲原則。
And not become confused.
咁就唔需要感到疑惑。
Like that. Quick. Yes, Radhadasi. Yes, Radhadasi.
How to draw the baseline conclusion? I mean, how to draw the baseline? Is it that, how do I know that of course I'm not now, academically or in a struggling devotee, is applying, trying to apply whatever one has for Krishna. That may I say that when that what he's trying to do, like how much we should give for Krishna. That I mean, how much percentage? How do we draw the baseline so that we can, on this foundation, this one, like 50% we give to Krishna. I'm satisfied. So may I say that if whatever I'm doing, material or spiritually, then after you're doing it, you feel satisfied internally, then you are on the right path. Can I say this?
You've answered your own question.
Yes,
The thing about you is, if you just let me talk long enough, you answer the question. This is the lovely thing about Radhadasi.
Yeah.
You just let her talk long enough, she asks the question, and she answers, and she discusses it, and then she answers the question, and it's lovely.
So upon confirmation,
I sit and learn. I sit and learn from you.
You can give
No.
a class.
Yeah, she should. She should.
so the answer is
The answer is that you judge not just by what you're thinking, you judge by what other people in general, how they're receiving you, especially your spiritual master or your spiritual authorities or persons you have faith and trust in spiritually, how they are responding to you. You judge whether you're going right or going wrong. You give as much as you can without your mind becoming disturbed. You give as much as you can without disrupting your mental stability.
but sometimes you give too much, you feel uneasy.
Sometimes you give too much and you feel at ease or feel uneasy.
Uneasy.
Yeah, you just answered my question. You just repeated what I just said.
You disturb your mental.
You just repeated what I just said.
In your own words.
In your own words, which comes right back to the same conclusion I come to. She actually understands everything,
Yes.
but she gives good questions because for the benefit of others. I'm joking, but the fact is, you just said what I was saying. You give to the point where you're comfortable. If you come to the point where you're at dis-ease, that you're uncomfortable, then you've given too much. But that doesn't mean that then you can give less and less and less, and then you think, oh, I feel comfortable now, so therefore I don't have to give anything. That's not honest. That's not honest. You have to be honest.
Yes.
You give what you can give, as much as you can give, without disrupting your wholesome condition and without disrupting your mental equilibrium. And then you try to give more. And you try to give a little like that. And you practice, and you practice, and you practice. And Krishna, he's there watching. You know. And when you give everything to Krishna, then he gives himself to you. And as much as you give to Krishna, that much he will give to you, himself. So when you learn that art, or you learn that truth, you want to give more. You may not be able to immediately, but you'll still want to. Because you'll know that if I give everything, then I'll get Krishna. So, but still you have to be prudent. You have to be prudent. You can't do something that will cause you to just go crazy, fall down, or whatever. Get so agitated that you can't, behave properly.
So can we call it a spiritual fruitive activity? Yeah.
But
But it's
Correct.
okay.
Correct.
But
Correct.
it's okay.
Yes.
咁個問題就話我哋要付出到去幾多呢？咁 Maharaj 嘅答案就係話，即係你付出去一個程度，即係你能夠付出嘅話，你就去付出，但係就唔好令到你嘅心意受到騷擾啊。咁而 Krishna 亦都會睇緊你付出幾多，咁佢就會有回應嘅。咁當你付出越多嘅時候，咁 Krishna 又會回應得更加多啦。你將你自己完全去付出嘅時候，或者完全去臣服嘅時候 ，Krishna 就會將自己俾咗你咯。
咁你又點樣睇你付出嘅其實係咪成正比咧？咁你就唔係覺得睇自己諗係咪覺得舒服或者點？第一覺得自己舒服啦，舒服啦。咁第二就係你睇周嘅人咧，或者佢嘅當地嘅 authority 咧，嘅回應啊，佢嘅 comment 啊，咁係咯，就睇佢哋個 react 個 response，咁你就知自己係做得點咯。
The key is to go forward. That's the key, to go forward. Not to go backwards or to the left or to the right, but forward.
咁個重點就一定要向前行，唔好向後褪或者向左向右擺。
可以叫靈性嘅嗰個活動。
Okay, we'll stop there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shishibari Kai Puja. Well done.